Hi, we're out on the range today, so please bear with gunfire you hear in the background. And today is part 2 of a 3-part series, which will probably end up being a 4-part series on some basic tactics. And what we're talking about today is shooting and moving. Now in part 1 we talked about shooting from cover, and there were some things that caused a little bit of confusion, so before we get into shooting and moving, I want to recap a couple of things from part 1. Let me show you something. In part 1 I demonstrated using a wall as cover, and shooting like so. And someone suggested to me that that was wrong. You shouldn't, what he called, hug the cover. You should always be back from cover. Yes, being back from your cover is a good idea. That's why I demonstrated it in part 1. If what you're using for cover is this right here, you're going to be pretty much up against it. There really isn't any backing up. Sometimes you're going to have to be up against that cover. Remember, what we're doing is just a brief overview. If I wanted to go into all the details of everything you could possibly get into, we'd be here for days. This is also why it's generally speaking a good idea to avoid words such as always and never. We also had a viewer comment that when using cover such as this concrete wall, you don't want to be up against it because when a bullet hits this wall, it won't necessarily ricochet off at the same angle that it hit it. It will ricochet off and come down the wall at a very shallow angle, getting only slightly farther away as it goes. So if possible, you'd want to be back from that wall and reduce your chances of being hit. That is a very good point. However, when I'm using this target frame to simulate a wall and shooting like this, that wasn't the kind of wall I was trying to simulate. And we had a viewer saying that if you shoot from the left side of cover, that will cause malfunctions. Now you may recall I said don't put your pistol against the cover. That will cause malfunctions. Just have your hand against it. But what he was saying is that because most autoloaders eject up and to the right, that in this position that empty casing is going to come out of your chamber, hit your cover, and bounce back into your chamber before the slide can go forward, causing what would appear to be a reverse stovepipe. Well, I suppose that something like that could happen every once in a while, but he said that it would happen constantly and that he took a class where the instructor made all of the students shoot from the left side of cover just to make that point, and that that malfunction occurred in every student's gun before they could even get through 2 magazines. Well, let's see if I can recreate that. No, that wasn't a malfunction. I'm just out. So far, so good. Let's try a different gun. Let's try a classic like the 1911. And please remember, I'm not left-handed. Okay, let's try another gun. How about an FN57? No, that wasn't a malfunction. I'm just out. And again, I'm just out. So far so good. Let's try one more pistol. Now, a wide open system like this Beretta 92FS is intended to reduce the chances of malfunction, but in what we're trying to create, it might work against us. Let's find out. Please be patient with me, I'm not left-handed. And again, I'm just out. So that was a lot of rounds, certainly more than 2 magazines, and we saw the malfunction that he's talking about occurring 0 times. So when you say something like that happened to you, no fella, it didn't. Now that we've got all the recap out of the way, let's get to today's topic, shooting and moving. The first thing I want to go over is moving from one covered position to another. Now, if you're in a citizen-involved shooting, that means if you're shooting this direction, you're probably going to want to move away from whatever bad thing is going on, not toward it. And the biggest thing of all of this is you want to move from one covered position to another covered position. Therefore, you want to know where you're going to go before you go there, if at all possible. So from here, where's a good place to go? Through that doorway over there might be a good idea. Also, this might be a good time before you move to do a tactical reload. Now, before you move, you want to make sure that your situation is clear, and there's something we learned in the military called a turkey look, where you turkey look and then come back. That might have its place in some applications, but I'd say more often, once you get out here and you've got some control over what you're seeing, to keep that before you move. So if you put it all together, it might look something like this. Well, that seemed to work out okay, but some of you have made the observation that instead of running to that door, exposing myself to hostile fire, why didn't I just stay behind this wall, continue to use it as cover, while I went straight back and jumped through that window? Very good point. But in doing that, there's some things you have to take into consideration. Just like the door, you got to say, do you know what's through there? And then you have to add, can you fit through that window? Are you agile enough to jump through that window? And above all, you notice that before I moved, I hit my decock lever. Well, whatever your pistol has, a decock lever, a safety, or maybe you're just dependent on straight trigger finger, you must do those things to make sure that your pistol is safe before you run. Going through a door is one thing. Doing something acrobatic like jumping through a window is a little different. And you don't want to have a police report that reads a criminal shot at you 10 times and missed, and then you shot yourself in the knee trying to jump through a window. So let's see if I can do it. Well, fit through the window, agile enough to get through it, barely on both counts. You also have to remember this isn't baseball. You're not safe just because your foot hit the bag. Once you get through there, you've got to get down and allow this to be cover for you. Now, you'll notice while I was running, I never made any attempt to weave. What's that movie where the guy yells, "Serpentine, Shell, serpentine"? Yeah. That might be a really good idea when you're running across a football field, but for the very short distances I was trying to traverse, what that's going to accomplish most of the time is just exposing you to hostile fire longer than you really wanted to be. But it brings up the question, what about shooting while you're running? Well, I've got our 2 targets set up here with shooting C's on them, and let's try that running scenario again. And this time I'll try shooting while I run. Now we'll go back here to our original cover, and so we'll be shooting about 7 yards. And this time when I run to the doorway, I'll shoot. Now there's a couple of ways to do this. I can shoot one-handed while I'm trying to run, or I can maintain the two-handed grip and do a shuffle step and try to shoot while I do that. Let's try both of those and see how they work out. This time I'll forego shooting any shots before I run because we only want to count the shots that I fire while I'm running. So let's see how this works. So how'd we do? Well, the first thing you may notice is it slowed me down a great deal in getting from point A to point B. Secondly, I fired 7 shots. I only got 3 on paper, only one of which is a marginal hit. Now, where this really comes into play is, although criminals are not in the least bit worried about where their bullets go, you are going to be strictly accountable for where every shot you fire goes, and they didn't exactly go where I wanted them to. So although this does have the advantage of it might keep somebody's head down, it has a lot of disadvantages too. Now let's try the second technique. So let's see how the two-handed technique works. So how'd we do? Well, this time I fired 8 shots and I got 8 hits. Now I like to think that I'm a fairly good handgun shooter, but shooting while moving backwards, some of these hits are very marginal. The accuracy really suffers. Also, moving backwards is wrought with perils. But as we can see, the accuracy of this technique is a lot better, but did you notice how much longer it took? And was it worth that extra time? You be the judge. So those are the main things I wanted to cover, and remember we could go on for days, but I just wanted to hit a couple of the high points. Now there are a few things I want to add, and fair warning, this is the boring part of the video where I talk. In all of these things I'm dealing with self-defense, concealed carry, personal protection scenarios for citizens. The tactics that the police or military would use may be very different. That's why I deal with things like moving backwards or moving sideways and backwards, not moving forward. There are times when the situation may dictate that moving toward the danger is the right thing to do. Let me tell you an anecdote. I was in this wildlife area going on a path along the river with Cookie and Rocky. Now, Cookie is a Bernese mountain dog. Rocky is a Russian wolfhound, more properly known as a Borzoi. But anyway, next thing you know, we're confronted by a pack of feral dogs. And these are some pretty serious dogs. There's like a Chow mix and a Rottweiler mix, and there was 7 of them, if I remember right. They split into 2 groups and they're doing an envelopment on us. Well, I've got to make a really fast decision about what to do here. And of course, I didn't have a gun with me. And what I decided was that we would move toward the smaller of the 2 groups. And we got online and we charged them. I yelled, "Ah!" and they all ran away. Yes, I'm trying to tell the politically correct version. The real version is they all ran away except one, and Cookie and Rocky killed it. But anyway, the point is, in that case, charging the danger was the right thing to do. If I had to do it again, I'd do the exact same thing. But in a citizen-involved shooting, you're going to be very closely scrutinized for everything you do and every decision you make. And trying to say that you were so afraid that you had to charge the danger may be a very difficult point to make in court. So, as always, don't try this at home on what you call a professional, and thanks for watching part 2 of our 3-part series on tactics.